What are the consumption trends for 2015? Is a demand recovery on the cards? We asked the man best placed to answer that question. R.C. Bhargava, the chairman of Maruti Suzuki, joins us now. And our guest editor, Adrian Mowat, has also been speaking with us. He's here with us in the studio. So let's welcome Mr. Bhargava. Good morning. We have Lata, myself, and Adrian Mowat also as our guest editor today. So he'll be quizzing you as well. But before I hand it across to him, I just wanted your view on, we have been speaking with you several times about what the prognosis is for 2015, but we haven't seen any concrete signs of a recovery in demand. I mean, at best, in the month gone by, it's been a 3% growth in industry sales. What's the sense you're getting about whether things are picking up on the ground?
No, I don't think for the industry as a whole sales are picking up. And the reason for that is that the customers who had flocked to the diesel car market when the prices of diesel and petrol kept increasing rapidly during 2011-12 have now an opposite behavior pattern, that as diesel prices have gone up and the gap between petrol and diesel has narrowed, the customers just running away from diesel. So what has happened is, while petrol sales of cars has been growing both for the industry as well as for us, diesel sales have declined. And because many of our producers in India have large diesel component in their stable, the result is a negative growth on that side, which offsets the growth on petrol, and we have hardly any growth left.
And would you describe this as a structural change, or is this just a small cyclical event?
Yeah, I think it's you know, when in 2011 the petrol prices went up sharply, the government kept the diesel prices low. At that time, there was an exodus of customers from petrol to diesel. The share of diesel in the market, which used to be around 30%, went up to well over 50%. And I think at some companies it was as much as 80%. Now what is happening is the gap has narrowed down from about 32 rupees a litre to around 10 rupees a litre. And because of that narrow gap, people are just coming back to petrol. And diesel producers are losing market share quite fast, actually.
So would that make you negative on M&M, Adrian? Because that's a big diesel car maker.
I think you've got to take into account this trend. And the other thing to think about M&M would be rural incomes after a poor monsoon, smaller increase in minimum support prices.
In fact, Mr. Bhargava, I wanted to get in the interest rate angle. We've seen the first of the cuts from the regulator, but none of the banks have announced. We understand from a previous guest that things could get as good as maybe 1 percentage point lower. Srini was talking to us about 8% deposit rates, which would mean maybe 9% lending rates. If interest rates fell, would that be a very big positive in terms of a demand kicker?
Not by itself. I believe that interest rates is only one of the factors, because it affects the EMI of the customers who are borrowing money to buy cars. And that's over 70% of the total sales. But along with that, I think the fuel price drop which has happened, and if that continues during 15-16, I think that would be a very big factor in boosting sales, along with whether the car manufacturers are able to keep their prices more or less at the same level as today. Because the customer looks at his total affordability of owning a car, not just one of the factors relating to that.
What's your JPMorgan take on that? Are you expecting crude prices to remain sober throughout 2015?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to expect them to be at current levels. One thing I'd caution you is no one forecast that the oil price would fall as much as it did. So to some extent I view oil as a risk to manage. But if we think about how the cartel has changed in terms of OPEC, where Saudi is out there trying to win market share. And we also think that the decline in shale gas production will be much slower than market expectations. So maybe the oil price does stay this low, moves a bit lower, which is very helpful for the global economy. And I wanted to ask about input prices, and we've seen declines in steel prices, petrochemical prices, energy in general. Do you expect to see a margin improvement for the auto industry over the next year?
I think so. I think the commodity prices have generally been softening over the last year. And the way the indications are, I don't think there would be a real reversal in the trends. Adrian, you would know this better. But if the prices remain low and if the yen continues to be weak as it has been around the 120 level, then I expect that with increasing volumes, more capacity utilization, because we still have unutilized capacity, and if we can get somewhere near 100% capacity utilization, both these factors would help in improving the margins.
So if we go back to the volume story and the decline in gasoline and diesel prices that we've seen, for how many months do we need to see that decline before you begin to see a pickup in demand?
No, I think as far as Maruti is concerned, we have seen even in this last year that we have grown so far by about 13%. And that growth is because we are about 70% petrol, only 30% diesel. And our 70% has grown by a pretty good rate. I think around 17-18% we've been growing on the petrol side. And as a result of that, our growth is very good. So I think as petrol prices remain low, diesel prices and petrol prices differ by only about 10 rupees, I think this trend will continue, and we will continue to grow and fill up the remaining capacity which is there in the two plants in Gurgaon and Manesar.
I wanted your thoughts on what's happening with the export markets, Mr. Bhargava, because, you know, we were hearing from Bajaj Auto a couple of days ago where they said that a lot of these export economies, African countries like Nigeria, etc., are undergoing a huge slowdown. Are you facing heat as well in some of the export markets, and should we brace ourselves for slower export growth?
No, we have actually not faced a slowdown this year. In fact, our exports this year will be about 20% higher than last year. 120,000 cars compared to about 100,000 cars last year. Part of this is because of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka cut down on their import duties about 3 months ago. And as a result of that, there's been a huge boost in demand in that country. But leaving Sri Lanka aside, even Algeria and Zambia and these countries have all been growing. It's not been slowing down. In Algeria, there was some problem because of the change in regulations. But overall, I think this year has been a stronger year for exports than last year. And I don't see that slowing down next year.
Okay. Generally, you're not exporting to the commodity countries, and maybe that's why you haven't felt the pinch, Mr. Bhargava. You know, for the industry as a whole, when will the next capex happen, say for Maruti itself? Do you see it 6 quarters down the line, 8 quarters down the line?
Difficult to forecast that far, Lata. I don't know how much.
Is the industry working to capacity at all? If not, what is the capacity utilization?
No, industry is not working to capacity. You know, our capacity in Gurgaon, Manesar is about 150,000 cars. This year, we'll probably get up to about 130. So we still have that gap of about almost 8-9% which remains in our capacity this year. And no, more than that, sorry, about 15% in our capacity this year. And I hope that in 15-16 we'll get somewhere close to full capacity. But we are better than most other manufacturers who have much larger unutilized capacities at this point of time.
Final question, what would you wish for from the budget for your industry?
You know, Adrian, what we always wish for is absolute stability of policy. We have a few things which we have said. We don't think excise cuts can come, will come, so we've given up that aspect of the things. but we want a tax regime which is stable, which is reasonable, which is what has been promised to us. And as long as that continues and there are no surprises anywhere, we would be quite happy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, you wanted to ask him something else?
No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhargava, for joining us in what's a very big day for us. We have our guest editor with us.